Welcome to one of the first auto readers in the world. Just enjoy.
Chapter 1. Whispers in the Rain. The rain was a persistent mourner over Haida province. Not the cleansing showers of spring, nor the brief, violent tempests of summer, but a cold, autumnal weeping that seeped into the earth, the wood of the houses, and the very bones of its people. It had been falling for 3 days, blurring the sharp peaks of the surrounding mountains into indistinct smudges of grey ink against a bruised sky, mirroring the gloom that had settled over the land since Lord Fujiwara's passing. Inside his small, meticulously kept cottage on the village outskirts, Kenjiro sat in the formal seiza position, the rhythmic drumming of rain on the thatched roof a familiar, yet tonight unsettling counterpoint to the whisper of silk against stone. Before him, resting on a simple wooden stand, lay his katana, Umi no Tamash, soul of the sea. Its polished surface reflected the meager lamplight, the undulating Hammon line along its edge like a captured wave, a testament to the smith's artistry and the blade's deadly potential. He carefully drew a square of soft nubligami paper along the steel, his movements economical, precise, honed by years of discipline. The care of his swords, the katana and its shorter companion, the wakizashi, together his daisho, was a ritual, a connection to the samurai path he still walked, even without a banner to follow. He was Ronin, masterless, not by dishonor or choice, but by the cruel twist of fate, or perhaps, as the hushed tones in the marketplace suggested, by something far more sinister. Lord Fujiwara Nobutada, his daimyo, a man whose wisdom was as respected as his patronage of poetry and ink painting, had succumbed 3 moons ago to a startlingly swift illness. Also the official decree, stamped with the seal of his cousin and successor, Lord Ishikawa Jiro, proclaimed. But Kenjiro, whose senses had been sharpened by countless hours of meditation and the unforgiving tutelage of the Sword Saint Oboro, felt the discord beneath the surface. He heard the real whispers carried on the rain-soaked wind, whispers of physicians dismissed, of tea served by unfamiliar hands, of Ishikawa's barely concealed impatience during the morning rites. Ishikawa, a man whose ambition was as sharp and cold as the winter wind off the peaks, now ruled Haida. His efficiency was undeniable. Taxes were collected with ruthless promptness, patrols enforced a new, harsher curfew, and the laughter that once echoed from the tea houses seemed muted, hesitant. The province felt constricted, held in a tightening fist. Kenjiro sighed, the sound barely audible above the rain. He had served Lord Fujiwara faithfully, valued not only for the lethal grace of his sword style, a blur of motion that seemed to flow around opponents like water, but for his contemplative nature. Master Oboro had called him the thinking blade, capable of seeing the shades of grey within the rigid black and white of the samurai code. He believed honor was rooted in giri, duty, but blossomed only through jin, benevolence and righteousness. This nuance, appreciated by the late Lord Fujiwara, marked him as potentially troublesome under Ishikawa's stark rule. He had quietly refused offers to join Ishikawa's personal guard, preferring the sparse freedom of his current status, sensing the wrongness in the air like a change in barometric pressure before a storm. His fingers paused on the cool steel of the katana. Was this quiet life? This subsistence on meager savings and occasional carefully chosen guard duties for merchants all that remained? The blade felt heavy tonight, not with physical weight, but with the burden of inaction, the subtle shame of survival when his lord had not. A sudden, frantic scrabbling sound at his shoji door jolted him from his reverie. It wasn't the firm knock of a fellow samurai or the polite call of a villager. It was the sound of desperation. Kenjiro rose silently, his hand instinctively moving not towards his swords, but towards the simple bamboo practice, shinai leaning near the entrance. Less lethal, but always ready. He slid the door open just a crack, peering into the deluge. A figure huddled there, drenched and shivering, almost collapsing against the frame. A wide, dripping casa hat obscured the face, but the slight build and the fine, though mud-splattered and torn silk of the visible kimono spoke of high birth. Water streamed from the cloak, pooling on the packed earth by his doorstep. "Kenjiro-san?" The voice was a choked whisper, barely audible above the downpour. distinctly female, laced with terror. His caution warred with a surge of protective instinct. He recognized the specific honorific, the underlying quality of the voice despite the strain. He opened the door wider. "Enter, quickly." The figure stumbled inside, leaning heavily against the doorframe as Kenjiro slid it shut, muffling the roar of the rain. The visitor pushed back the sodden hat. Lamplight flickered across the pale, rain-streaked face of Lady Akari, Lord Fujiwara's only daughter. Her intricate hairstyle was collapsing, stray strands plastered to her temples. Her eyes, usually sparkling with the intelligence she'd inherited from her father, were wide and dark with a primal fear he had only ever seen in cornered animals or soldiers facing certain death. "Akari-sama," Kenjiro breathed, his heart lurching. He automatically started a formal bow, but she waved a trembling hand. "No time. Forgive this intrusion, Kenjiro-san," she gasped, her breath catching in painful sobs. Ishikawa. I had nowhere else." "You are pursued?" Kenjiro's voice was low, his senses instantly on high alert, scanning the flimsy walls of his cottage as if expecting shadows to detach themselves. She nodded frantically, pulling her soaked cloak tighter. "Lord Ishikawa declared tonight. He intends to marry me before the week is out, for the stability of the clan, he claims." Her voice dripped with bitter sarcasm even through the fear. "But it's a lie. He wants something else. My father." Her breath hitched again. "My father foresaw something before he..." She couldn't say the word, "died. He gave me this." From the deep sleeve of her ruined kimono, Akari withdrew a small lacquered box. It was surprisingly dry, intricately decorated with mother-of-pearl inlay depicting cranes in flight. It seemed impossibly delicate, impossibly precious amidst her disarray. "He told me, if the worst should happen, I was to trust only one man." Her terrified eyes locked onto his. He said, "Find the samurai who understands the weight of a heron's feather." Kenjiro froze. The weight of a heron's feather. Years ago, as a younger, less disciplined samurai, he'd spent an entire afternoon patiently rescuing a magnificent grey heron with a broken wing tangled in fishing lines by the river, ignoring the smirks of his peers. Lord Fujiwara had observed him from the path above. Later, he had summoned Kenjiro, not for praise, but for a quiet conversation about the essence of strength. How it lay not just in the power to destroy, but in the precision and compassion to protect, even the seemingly insignificant. "A true warrior understands the weight of a heron's feather," Fujiwara had murmured, a thoughtful look in his eyes. It had become their private understanding, a symbol of the values they shared. Fujiwara had remembered, and in his final days, he had placed his daughter's life upon that memory. "Tonight," Akari continued, her voice dropping to a terrified whisper, clutching the box as if it were a shield, Ishikawa's personal guard. "Saito. They came to my chambers. They weren't gentle. They searched everything. I heard them mention a ledger, a box. I hid, then I ran. They are looking for this, Kenjiro-san." She held the lacquered box out towards him, her small hand trembling violently. The polished surface gleamed in the lamplight, seeming to hold all the darkness and intrigue of Hida within its silent wooden confines. "I think?" Akari choked out, tears finally spilling freely, mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "I think they killed my father for what is inside, and now they hunt me for it." The rain drummed relentlessly on the roof, each drop suddenly sounding like a footstep, like the cocking of a matchlock, like the drawing of a blade in the suffocating darkness outside. Kenjiro's hand tightened, not on the practiced shinai, but on the phantom feel of his katana's hilt. The quiet life was shattered. Duty, cold and sharp as winter steel, had found him in the weeping rain.